Well, let's see whether or not we're streaming. Just pop on over to Sirens in the background as soon as I hit play and see whether or not it says we're streaming. We are! So I hope everybody likes Sirens. Let me just go ahead and post to Twitter. I am streaming game dev. I'm gonna do some shader stuff and some UI stuff. Paste. I guess I should put a hashtag in there. Alright, with that in mind, Pink Hair is here. He asks whether the cops are coming from me. No, I paid up. So, we're going to want to put our avatar into a system where we can edit it from our ship, but there are some experiments I want to do first. We're going to try and replace our hull texture. It's been growing on me, this need to change how it looks. I don't think that this game can survive with a totally generic look. So I've been trying to figure out various ways of having a more interesting look that doesn't accidentally make the game feel too idiosyncratic. You know, like I don't really need a black and white shader or anything like that. But there are some cool ideas out on the internet, and we're going to try a couple of little things to see whether or not we can get a shader that does what we want it to do. And to that end, we're going to be using Shader Forge. Now, Shader Forge used to be fairly expensive, but in these days, I believe it's gone open source. So that is a little bit cheaper. And we're going to just put this inside of the materials directory. We'll call it hull.shader. There it is. So we're going to be doing the same basic thing that we have been doing with the other shaders, but we're going to be customizing it so that we have some fun elements of the ship. I want to try and see whether I can get something besides the completely flat, basic look of the ship. So just pulling this aside for a minute and hitting play. What I want to do is, if we have a ship, like say, oh, I don't have any ships saved anymore. That's right. All right. Well, if we have a ship like, say, this guy, and then, this guy, and then this guy, I want the ship to feel a little bit less flat colored, because I think that this flat color really does a disservice to the feel. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a shader which takes the local coordinates of the object and applies a color differential so that it is shaded brighter towards the nose and darker towards the back, or more specifically, any given set of colors will allow a tint. And that is our goal for today, so we're going to try and do that. However, doing that, pressing play, appears to have busted the connection, so we're going to have to go in and try it again here. Hull.shader. There you are. So here we have our setup, and this is a very default PBR material, nothing special about it. If we look over here, we've got a couple of properties which we should be familiar with. We've got a normal map, we've got a base color, we got a tint, we got some metallic and some gloss, basic stuff. This is actually substantially behind Unity's default PBR material. If we wanted to do some better stuff, we would probably want to use Unity's material system and try and edit that. But we don't need complexity for this kind of experiment, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and make this shader work for us by changing this color tint to a variety of colors. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. Just grab this and then duplicate it. So we'll have this one be nose, and this one be mid, and this one be tail. And let's tint these things to a specific default that we choose. In this case, we'll have a white nose, and we'll have a gray. And let's make it brighter gray like this. And then we'll move to a burned red just as a default here. Yeah, like this. That'll do. There. There are a lot of variations we can do, but since we'll be able to specify these material by material, there's no need to worry about it too much. We'll be able to just do whatever we want. So this here multiply, we're going to change that out with a set of lerps based on the exact position of our vector, of our vertex, or the point on the model we're coloring. So for that, we can take a look and try and get our local coordinates by tangent depth, normal direction, object position, object scale, screen position, tangent direction, UV coordinates, vertex color, view direction, world position. So we want local position, not world position. We can get that by taking world position and subtracting object position. But I think that there is an easier way to do it. I'm pretty sure there was just a flat out local position node. Well, let's grab the world position, and then what we'll do is we will ask it for help. Pop on over to our ShaderForge wiki and see whether or not we can get a local position. Okay, so there's no local anything. That's interesting. I thought there was, but maybe I was thinking about an actual, like, coded shader. Well, it's not great, but as a placeholder, it should work fine. We will go ahead and do this with the assumption that we'll replace it with a better shader later. So let's also get our local position here. And what we'll do is we'll put in a subtraction. That's a blend, not a subtraction. Well, since you've done this before, how did you do it? Are you doing it? Did you do it the same way I'm doing it, by just taking the world position and subtracting the object position? Because that's obviously not ideal from my perspective. I mean, I guess it's not too bad, but it does mean that we won't. That if the ship rotates, we'll have to take that into account as well. But if we take a look at our geometry data, we can get the object. How did you do world to local? Where did you get the local coordinates from? Did you? Hey, Jim Morin, we're just getting started on creating a new shader here, and I thought there was a local coordinates object that I could use here, but it doesn't appear to exist. So I'm just talking with Pinkhair and seeing whether or not he has one. Because all I really need to do is get the, I think it's the z-axis, it might be the y-axis, and lerp between these various colors based on that. But unfortunately, it is not being very useful because I can't get them to be local. I can only get them to be world and then subtract the local position, which would mean that as you rotated your ship, it would look weird. It's odd that it doesn't exist. Well, hopefully Pinkhair will have a solution for me. I'll look into this a little bit more to try and figure out what's going on. I mean, I can just add in a code block if Pinkhair has the code that I need to do it. Because obviously, that's what I really need. I just need the y-axis or the z-axis position of the object, of the particular point in space we're shading locally. Well, let's continue on with this, and then what we'll do is we will just go ahead and assume that we're going to replace this when we have an actual set of values. So, because we can do it with this, it'll just look dumb, which is kind of a unfortunate thing here. What we would like to do is lerp between these three values based on the exact position. But the problem is that this is an unscaled position, so what we really need to do is scale it by a certain amount, and that's what we'll do here. We will go ahead and divide by a specified amount, so and then we'll need to have a number. What is it, n? Normalize, v for value. That's c. There we are, value. There we are. I'll just drag that in there. This value is not a float, is it? Can I make it a float? Because that's... Oh, it's 0 because I'm just an idiot. Yeah, that's better. So we'll set that up as 1 just for now. We'll change it as we need it. I can't grab all of them? That's annoying. So now we have a value which is theoretically between 0 and 1, and we can use that to determine the color that we're going to need. I put in 3 colors here, but I don't think we can use 3 colors given the constraints here. I can use like an if statement or something, but this lerp isn't a double lerp, it's a single lerp. There's no way for me to enter in more values. What we can do, however, is square that number. So let's see if we can find the power. P is for power, and then we'll just go ahead and put in a value. And this will be the power mark. Try the transform node. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Let's take a look here. T is for transform. There is a transform node. So Pink Hair says I should use this transform node from world to local. Excellent. Okay, so that's exactly what I needed. So what I do is I take the world position like this, right? And then I transform it into a local position like that. And then I just want the y-axis. So in order to do that, I have to get a vector. How do I just pick one of the 3 objects? It's something basic. UV operations, vector operations. I bet it's in here. Component mass desaturate DDDX. What are these? Output's a partial derivative rate of change. No, that's not what I want. Pink Hair 3D says, what objects? Sorry, these nodes, there's a node that allows me to pull the vector apart into XYZ coordinates. And I just don't happen to remember what it is. Constant vectors, I can't put an input on them. Component mask. See, it's such a great thing to be doing this live on the days when you are here because you've done all this shit before, and I can just kind of piggyback. So obviously, we don't want the x-axis, we want the y or z-axis. I'm not entirely sure which. But what we'll do is we don't need to subtract anything. There we are. Just do it this way. And that's what we want. So this will get us the y element of our position, divide it by some amount that we specify, square it, or whatever we want to do with it. And then we can lerp between the 2 colors using the standard old lerp. So we'll just go ahead and pump in this and this and this. It's not a very pleasant setup though, so let's just rearrange it so it's not quite as ugly. Boom. So what that should do in theory, is get us a value between white and brown, but the problem is that we've squared it, and a lot of it is negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to offset it by some amount rather than just leave it as negative. So we're going to want to add in as well as dividing. So let's go ahead and do just that. We're going to put in another value, offset. But the thing is that this stuff will be generated automatically by the program. There's not going to be too much need for the player or the developer to put that stuff in. There we are. So if we do it like this, if we add in an offset of 1, you can see what that ends up looking like here. And then when we lerp between the white and the brown, we get this weird situation, which doesn't seem quite right. So I'm betting that I've screwed something up. But what we'll do is we'll compile this shader and take a look. Jim Morin says, I wish I had a Jiminy Cricket when I work. Yeah, it's been super useful having streaming this stuff. Although, obviously, getting distracted is an issue. It's just so much better for productivity when I have a human Google in my chat. So let's drop in something that uses a hull prefab here. That would be down here. Let's get something long, like Hab Hall. There was the hall, right? Cell, tank, bathroom, cockpit, rooms, straight. There it is. I'll drop it in. There it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the shader on this component with a with the shader that we just created, which is down here in Shader Forge named Hull. And you can see the result is it's very, very black. So we're going to want to play around with the values until we figure out what the sweet spots are. Up here, it's brown, but everywhere else, it's black. So let's go ahead and drag this up so that we don't have it caught in the middle of this mess here. I'm going to drag it over. And then we'll just adjust some values. Let's close this down for the moment. So if we can look down here, we've got a number of values set up properly, but we don't know what they are yet. So if we increase the divisor, that gives us a much better offset, and you can see how that sort of is supposed to look. But the issue is that we're having some differences of opinion on the top and on the sides. Now the reason for that is because the top is the heavy hull shader. So we're going to switch out this material shader for the one we just created. Boom. And we're going to go and there's no... Oh, I think that that's probably a bug. But either way, we're going to go ahead and make this divisor 10. And we're going to also make this divisor 10. And you can sort of see what I'm going for. Now the heavy hull has a darker nose element, so we'll just go ahead and color this like so. And in exchange, we're going to bring this down to a pitch black. So the idea of this is that we will have a shader which has a nice color shift as you go down the ship. Now this obviously has some issues because we're manually specifying the exact size of the shader, and that's going to mean that we have this heavy cutoff here, and back here we have this sudden shift to darkness. The two ways around that are, if it's below 0, we can just presume that it's supposed to be pale, and the other way we can do it is we can just algorithmically adjust it to the size of the ship in question. So that's probably the better approach. The good news is we know exactly when we're supposed to do that. So what we're going to do is just open up our ship system here. And there is a moment when we recalculate our object parameters. We get the ship's scale somewhere in here. Oh, that was in the template, wasn't it? I didn't actually bring it over. Well, for now, why don't we go ahead and just set up some reasonable defaults given the size of the the plane that we're working with here. So we'll set up a divisor of power of 1.5. I think that's probably better, yeah. And then we'll offset by 10, like this. And we'll give it a divisor of 50. Pink Hair says he suggests having an alpha channel on my generic hull textures to specify which parts get procedurally colored and which don't. Yeah, there's a lot of work I have to put into the whole system to try and get it to function, the whole coloring system. I'm going to have to do a lot of work on these shaders, and I think what I'll do is do it later. I know it sounds kind of like I'm pushing it off, and I am. But there are values here that need to be drawn in from code, and the code doesn't even exist yet. So I think that it's probably for the best if I try to get this to just work for a while, and then we can work it out later. So that will change the hull for most of the objects. There are a couple of objects that don't use this hull system. They use a different hull system. But that's okay. I just wanted to experiment with it and see whether or not it looked good. Let's go ahead and try it on for size in an actual ship. Hey, Takir95. So if we pull up some ship elements, we can start to build ourselves a nice ship. So let's grab ourselves some cockpit, put it up here somewhere. And then we can put in a straight like so. And then some rooms like this, and then we can put in an X junction, and then we can put in some airlocks. There you are. Just bring them down like this. Nah, not bad. They're upside down. Whatever. Good enough. And then we can also put in a reactor right here on the back. Is that too far away? I think that's right. So what I really want to do is I want to have this adaptively detect things like rocket thrusters and stuff when coloring the ship, because I'm trying to go for a specific look, and I'm not at all sure whether or not that look exists anywhere. I guess the closest thing is Sparth, if you've ever seen any of his drawings. But I need to have a distinct look to my ships, and that means that I need to make sure that I have some kind of distinctive element, and I think that I want the shaders to be that distinctive element. So let's take a look at our mount. Here we are, large mount. Just pop it right on, and then pop this on. That's fine. And then we can put on some maneuvering jets back here. And then some more up here somewhere. I guess we'll just put on the 2 for now. And more sirens. It's a very siren-y day. Boom. There we are. We got a little ship. So the point of building this ship was to try out some specific material offsets. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the scene and going to grab one of these objects, and we're going to adjust the exact sets here. So right now it's 50, 100, 1.5. If we bring this down to just 1, it becomes a little bit more noticeable. You can see that. But what I really do want to have is I really do want to have it so that it fades from a bright color down to a mid-tone and then suddenly into a dark color. And with only 2 elements, we can't really do that. So let's go ahead and save this ship info. We will call this the Bajorker, and we'll just save it. That way we can load it up later without needing to worry about it too much. Let's go ahead and try to fix up that hull so that it looks a little bit more like what I have in my head, which obviously is not a great way to try and communicate things. So here we are back in Shader Forge. So the key problem here is this offset. So we're going to delete the offset. What we want to do is, if it's below 0, we want to take a specific color. Otherwise, we want to shift between the 3 colors in an arbitrary way. Now there is an if. There's like some kind of logic system here where if you put in an I, you can see an if. But I actually don't know how this works. I think that it computes everything and then just sends one element through at the end, which is not great. It would be preferable if it did not compute absolutely everything. But since it's just computing colors, I think it might be okay. Pink Hair says you could have 3 objects to determine the points for the gradient and scale the objects to determine the sharpness. I don't know how I would put that into the shader. I would love to see that as some kind of method to handling the system, because what I want to do is I would have the engines emit a dark color. I would have the engines emit that burned brown. And then I could use that as a shading technique. But I don't know how to do that. My shader capabilities are pretty basic, and that's kind of a shame, but I'm afraid that that is what I've got. That would be awesome, actually, if I had a shader which could take arbitrary objects and take their colors and shade from that idea, the kind of field of influence shader. That would be amazingly cool. I just don't know how to do it. A projector? Well, let's see. Aren't projectors expensive? Let me go ahead and pull up the image that I'm kind of thinking of when I'm doing this. There it is. Let's see whether I can get this to display in a different way here. Because otherwise, it's going to show you all my bookmarks. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. So this is the image that I am working on. This is one of Sparth's ships. I didn't draw this. But you can see how the gradient comes along. That gradient is completely artificial. It doesn't make any sense from a coloring perspective, but it adds to the liveliness of the ship to not have the entire ship be a flat color. So what I'm trying to do is mid-tone, bright to mid-tone to dark with this same kind of color shifted offset. What I would really like to do is have that be something which automatically adjusted to the engines that you put on your ship and the stuff you put on your ship. The problem is that I don't have any of the skills necessary to do that. So what I was just going to do is make the color shift baked in. Pink Hair says, what about doing it in screen space? I've done that a lot, but the problem with screen space is that as the ship moved forward, it would become brighter and brighter and brighter. Or as it moved backwards, it become darker and darker and darker. At least that's how I understand it. So that wouldn't really have the same kind of solidness that the ship has when the ship is itself responsible for coming up with the coloration. Now, one of the big issues here is that all of these objects on the ship are not baked together. They're all separate objects. And that means that that I have to go in and set the materials on every single object, and that gets a little expensive. I think I can drop this into chat, can't I? Well, I tried to drop it into chat and it didn't come up, so I presume that I'm not allowed to share links in my own chat. Is that what's going on? Ah, there we are. Not sure what happened there. So that is the link to the ship if you want to view it yourself. And the author is Barth, as you might expect. I pasted it several times, and you probably only see it once. At least I hope you only see it once. So what we're going to want to do here is this and this. And if A is less than B, we're going to want to start to lerp. I mean, if A is... Sorry, do I have this backwards? B is 0. If A is greater than B... Yeah, I have it backwards because I'm friggin' brilliant. Pink Air suggests vertex colors. Shader Forge works fine with vertex colors, and Code is very able to add them. Yeah, that was my original intent. I guess there's no reason I can't do that. Why don't we go ahead and try a Shader Forge solution that uses vertex colors? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new shader that just uses vertex colors, a very simple one. Where are you? There you are. New shader, lit PBR, materials, vert color hull. There we are. And of course, vertex color is right here. Very simple stuff. And we can just add it into the multiply. We can actually do anything we want with the vertex color, but this is probably the easiest. Seems good. I like it. Pretty straightforward, a lot easier. Yeah, except for the fact that now I have to write up some code to actually change the vertex color on all of the objects in the ship. Good news is that actually isn't too difficult. If we go into the ship, all we need to do is hook it in to the rest of the code. But first we're going to go and put in a region for it. And then we'll make it so that we can right-click to do it. So region... vertex coloration, end region, and public void color verts. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this more complicated later, but for now this will do it. Context menu, color verts. And what we're going to want to do is go through every mesh that we have, and so mesh renderer. Do we need... The mesh renderer is not the same, is it? It's a mesh... Where's the mesh object? What's it called? I can't... Huh. So this has a mesh... Oh, the ship doesn't have any meshes on it because I'm a frigging idiot. I don't know why it has a mesh renderer on it. There's no mesh to render on the ship. That's weird. That's just an error. This is what I wanted to look at. Here it is. It's a mesh filter. That's what it's called. Yeah, deferred decals are something I'm going to need to use. Just flat out have to use them. But I don't really know the best ways to use them yet. Unity keeps changing the rules. So, I don't know. Mesh filter mfs equals get components in children, mesh filter true. But this is going to grab all the components that we can find, not just the ship components. It's going to find people and furniture and all that stuff. So what we're actually going to want to do is find the parts transform here. There are two ways to do that. One is to use the part transform link, but the other is to use our parts list object. The class that we use is a ship component list. There it is, component list. So with that in mind, we can take the components list and just get it inside of the components. .transform.get components and children. That way we won't get like crew members and stuff. Jim Morin says, I've been busy making some evening snacks. I was listening to you on my phone. So what are we doing? Changing color from bright to dark, from front to back? Basically, yeah. I don't want the ships to look like they're flat colored. I think it looks really unrealistic, and it doesn't look like I want it to feel. If you want to see how I want it to feel, just scroll back up to the image link I posted earlier. That's the sort of feel I'm going for. So now that we have our mesh filter, we can go through and for each mesh filter MF in MFs, we say mesh equals mfs.shared mesh, or I guess there's no mf.shared mesh. And then we're going to go ahead. We don't want to do that. What am I thinking? Just mesh. We don't want to change the default mesh. We want to just create a new mesh. And now what we're going to do is find all of the points in this mesh and readjust them. So vertexes, vector 3, verts equals mesh.verts. And then we go for int a equals 0, a is less than verts.length, a plus plus. Oh, and we also need colors, right? But the colors, we can just create a new fresh set of colors. Mesh.colors 32. Do we want to do colors 32? I think that's probably for the best. So color 32 array colors equals new color 32 array of the same length as the verts. And then we just say, we don't have the colors set up yet, so I'm going to just dummy them in. Color front equals color.white. Color 32. Can I do this? No, that's fine. It should automatically adjust. Mid equals color.gray, and color 32 back equals new color, and then we'll go ahead and new color 32 it. And specify via bytes. So something like 90, 20, 20, 255. So what we're going to want to do is understand the full size of our ship. Now the mesh filter doesn't have any concept of scale, but all of our objects have mesh colliders in them. So what we can do is we can fetch all of our mesh colliders, or just colliders in general. They're not often mesh colliders. And we can just get the maximum extent of them. So float min y equals 0, float max y equals 0 for each collider c in colliders. If c dot what is it, bounds, c dot bounds dot extents dot that's not right. That's the size of the bounds. I don't want the size. I want the actual min. There we are. Min.y. Except for that's in global space, isn't it? It's not in local space. Well, that would mean that I have to get the vector in local space, so c.bounds.min. And then what we can do is say min equals c.transform dot world to local, except for that's a matrix, and I think what I need to do is actually transform a point. It might be untransform. Yeah, it's untransform. Or reverse transform. What is it? Inverse transform. And then same for max. And so that'll give us local space, world to local. But that's local on the frigging, on C. We don't want it on C, we want it on the ship. There we are. So that'll give us the exact coordinates on the ship. And then we can say if min.y is less than min y equals min.y. If max.y is greater than maxy equals max.y. And that'll give us a scope. And then down here, what we're going to need to do is take every vertex and transform it into ship space. So vector3 ship space equals transform point. It's inverse transform again, isn't it? Yeah. Now this is in this is just a state of transform, not an inverse transform. There we are. Come on. And we will just say verts A, and that'll give us the space. Hold on. I'm doing this wrong here. What we need to do is mesh filter dot transform point from local into world space, verts A. But then we also need to transform it from world space into ship space. Here we are. Local to world, then to ship. Once we have it in ship space, what we can do is get a percentage. Float percent equals ship space dot y minus min y divided by max y minus min y. And that should give us a percentage, how far through the object we are. And what we're going to do is we're going to just set the vector, the color of the vertex to a value based on that. So if percent is less than 0.5f, then we'll lerp between front and mid, and otherwise we'll lerp between back and front, or back and mid. Excuse me. Then we're gonna just go ahead and say, what is it? It's color.lerp isn't a thing, is it? Oh, it is. Okay, cool. So then we'll just take a front and mid, and then percent times 2. Otherwise, we need to do the same thing, but for a different set of colors. Mid and back. And instead of percent times 2, it is percent minus 0.5f times 2. And that should give us a set of colors that is what we would like. So let's go ahead and set our mesh.colors equal to that. And then remind our mesh to recalculate itself. I don't know whether this part is necessary. I don't think that any of this is necessary now that I'm thinking about it. We should use set colors though, shouldn't we? Because that'll have any of the cleanup that we need. It wants a list of colors? Really? What? Anybody know why it would be demanding a list of colors rather than an array of colors? I don't want to create a list of colors. That's dumb. If I pass it an array of colors, is it going to barf? I bet it's going to barf. There's probably no automatic conversion between a list. Look at all these errors. That is pretty impressive. There we are. Yep, I thought so. We can make it a list. It's just kind of stupid. Pink Air says that it's because Unity is fucking stupid, and he's right. Sometimes Unity has an amazing lack of insight. Well, there. Now you've got a list of colors, you dumb piece of shit. Good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and load up a ship. Oh, I forgot to set the colors. That's fine. We'll stop for a second. Let's set this up properly because it's still using the hull shader, and we need to switch that out for the vertex color hull like this. Boom. In both of these cases, it seems to have lost this texture here, which is kind of awkward. I'm not sure why it did that. But basically what we're going to want to do is, don't select it, just show it to me. There it is. Drop it. Clip Studio, go away. What we're going to want to do is drop in the surface details here so that it doesn't look terrible. Better. Okay. So with that in mind, let's hit play and set it up. Did I tell you what official Unity Technologies answer to how do I tell which particle was involved in the collision was? Loop through every particle and see which one has a position closest to the location of the collision. You know, I think I watched you have that conversation. Either that, or I have watched several people have that conversation. Corbett, I can't read it. It's light yellow on light gray. Is that Corby? Corby, hi, I am new here and I just wanted to thank you because you literally saved my studies. Well, that's good, but I'm not at all sure that that's something you should aspire to have happen, because you should definitely understand absolutely everything you can, if at all possible. So here is our ship. Let's go ahead and set up the Bjorker to properly have our coloration. Boom. Okay, so you can see that the colors did change. However, it looks like our setup isn't working quite right. Because the vertex colors don't appear to be very stark. Up here, it should be... Well, let's go ahead and move this back to like here and try again. Okay, so it's clear that there's something wrong with how we are calculating the position, because this should be black. Either that or this should be black. But instead we're getting nothing, which is kind of weird. So let's put in some debugs where it'll tell us what our extents are and stuff like that. So debug.log, changing colors of verts. Our min y is plus min y. Our max y is plus max y. And then we cannot possibly go through and put a debug in on all of these meshes. But what we can do is keep some totals. We're not going to do that at the moment, though. We're going to just let this happen with a little bit of a debug here. So debug.log. Oh, we already know it's changing them, so that's fine there. You should draw some gizmos to show the extents. That is a great idea, Pink Hair. So here's what we'll do. We will take these, and when we find a specific min and max y, we're going to draw some gizmos. Now, the problem with drawing gizmos is that, as I understand it, there's something screwy with how they work in the game, so we're going to want to take them out later or move them to an editor or something. I can't remember what the specifics are. But the problem here is that we don't store this, so if I draw it here, it'll show for 1 frame, and then it'll vanish. So what we actually need to do is set up some temporary variables that will allow us to keep track of those. So public vector3 min y and max y. And those are just temporary, so we don't have to worry about them too much. So down here what we'll do is we will say, oh, they're named the exact same thing, so min extent y and max extent y. So here we'll say min extent y equals min, and down here we'll say max extent y equals max. Now, drawing gizmos happens in update or on draw gizmos. I can't remember. Jim Morin says, forgive my misunderstanding, but couldn't one add a bounding box, take the dimensions of said bounding box, and then use those dimensions for a gradient? That's exactly what I'm doing. Unfortunately, the ship has 500 bounding boxes. So it can't just be, as far as I know, there's no way to simply calculate a bounding box off of an arbitrary set of bounding boxes. If that's possible, then that's something I should definitely do instead. But each of the bounding boxes is part of a collider. Is that something that bounding boxes can do? No, there's no concept. No concept of creating a bounding box that encapsulates, grows the bounds to encapsulate the bounds. You, sir, are a genius. That is exactly what I will do. You have found the correct way to do it. That is precisely correct. And we're not going to have any bounds to start with. It's just going to be empty. So we're not going to need this. We're not going to need this. Let's go ahead and keep the bounds as our variable. Public bounds. Bounds dot encapsulate. Oh, what is expand? Okay, in bounds dot encapsulate c dot bounds. That's right? Encapsulate takes a point or bounds? Bounds, good. So you just really made things a lot easier for me, let me tell you. So the problem with this bounds is that it is in world space, I believe, and not in ship space. So what we're going to need to do in order to get this, bye pink hair. You are obviously welcome to come back whenever you'd like, because you've saved my bacon more than once. But the problem with these bounds is that I believe they are in world space. Let's go ahead and draw ourselves some gizmos. The thing is, I can't remember drawing gizmos. Unity, gizmo, draw. I can't remember whether that's on update or on draw gizmos. On draw gizmos. Okay, that's fine then. Void on draw gizmos. And then we can set it up so that it'll draw the gizmos that we need. So gizmos dot draw cube. And then it's asking us for a center and a size. So we'll take our bounds dot center and bounds dot extent. Perfect. If bounds dot extent dot magnitude is greater than 0. There we are. All right. So we're going to go ahead and hit play. Load up a ship. The Bajorker. There's our Bajorker. Let's go ahead and set up our, here it is, color verts. Boom. And then we should have a gizmo drawing the extent of our ship's bounds. At the very least, we should be able to open up the ship and take a look at the bounds variable. Bounds, 0. Okay, there's something screwy here. Oh, idiot. I was adjusting a local variable and wondering why it wasn't happening. Let's try that again, this time with a global variable. Much better. All right. So then if we go over to the scene view, we can see that the bounds being drawn are... I don't see any bounds being drawn. Oh, is that it? Sorry, that giant gray thing right in front of me? Yeah, I wonder if that's it. So this giant gray thing is obviously incorrect. This does not encapsulate the bounds of the various colliders. Presumably that's because all of the colliders have been specified in local space. So this bounds is basically the nuclear reactor and then the engines. So we need to convert those bounds into global space. In order to convert the bounds into global space, we're probably going to have to run them through a simple set of commands, but I was just wondering whether or not there is... No, of course not. There's not an easy way to do it. Well, that's fine. Bounds ship space equals c.bounds. And then what we'll do is we'll say ship space.center equals c.transform.inverse transform point. That's world space to local point. We want the opposite. So transform point ship space dot center, and then we will just go ahead and transform that again into our ship's position, like so. We're going to want to do the exact same thing with the extents. Except for these extents are not a point. They are a vector, like this. I honestly don't know the difference between a direction and a vector. Well, we'll try vector, and if it's wrong, we'll try direction. And then here, ship space. The good news is our bounds should already be in local space. The bad news is chances are, well, we'll see. We'll see. It should work better than it did a second ago. Not save ship. Yorker. There it is, our beautiful ship. Let's go ahead and grab our colors, and then we'll go over to the scene view. The good news is that this is not going to be required for our overall ship, because I mean this is going to be required for our overall ship. So this is going to be something we use a lot, even though I'm currently developing it for a specific purpose. So it's clear that it's in world space, but I don't know why it's so big. Let's go ahead and leave it in world space for now and see whether or not that helps. Grind, grind, grind. Grind, 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 grind. Really? I'll check Twitter while you're waiting. All right, so let's pull up our buddy, the Yorker. And there it is. Pull up our vertexes. Still big, still huge. That is wrong. Oh. Yes, yes, Craig, that is wrong, because you're an idiot. Yeah, I'm going to take the difference, Jim. I'm going to go ahead and not have it too large or too small. Got to have the Goldilocks bounds. Bruh. Yeah. I honestly can't tell if that's any better. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put the bounds into ship space. So bounds.center equals transform. Well, we should put it in ship space. Well, the gizmos.drawCube, we're going to want to transform it here too. So transform dot local to global transform point. And transform dot transform vector. Yep, you're 10 seconds behind. That's the downside of working on Twitch. Alright, so there it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at the extents. Well, it's still wrong. It's still the exact same wrong. But if I offset it, it carries with the ship. If I rotate the ship, does it rotate correctly? Aha! There's our problem. And we're not looking for the vector after all. We must be looking for a direction or whatever the other option is. Ship info, load ship, Bjorker. There you go. Pull up that bounds. There's our bounds. And if we rotate, oh, it's still completely wrong. Like, wow, that's dumb. How is this so hard? It's hard to believe I'm having a hard time with this because it's very basic stuff. All right, try again. This looks exactly the same. So there's something seriously screwy with the bounds. Maybe I don't understand how the extents properly work. So I bet that the extents are currently being rendered as twice their size. So if I were to reduce the extents by half, it would probably look right. Jim Moran is also saying that he has these moments as well. Everyone does. I mean, the programmers, that's kind of the core of programming, is going, it doesn't work. Oh, I typoed. So yeah, that's the same. How is it the same? I divided the extents by 2 and it's the same? That's fucking weird. Okay, so there's something very, very wrong with the vector and the direction transform. This is not the right size either way. It's clear that I'm screwing something up. I've got something that doesn't work right at a very fundamental level. If we look at the bounds here in the specifics, you can see that it says that it's 40 meters by 30 meters by 20 meters, which is a little odd because 40 meters along the x-axis would be this way, which is incorrect. I can only assume that there's something just criminally wrong with the extents. Let's go ahead and take that out and see what happens when we just flat out say that we're just going to do it with just the extents. Because I can just simply move the ship to 0, 0, 0 and unrotate it to do this calculation. It's dumb, but I can do it. To me, it looks like you have to calculate both vectors in different spaces. I honestly don't know, but I can make it so that the ship space is the same as the world space when I'm doing the calculation. That's pretty basic. So this is... I mean, it's the same. Even though I have changed it, it's the same. So that implies that there's something screwy. Maybe this beautiful bounds.include thing isn't going to work after all. Encapsulate isn't going to work because I can't get it to be in the right place or facing the right way. I can do the calculation in world space, except for the extents seem to get screwed up. Debug.log component c.name in world space, ship space. Well, let's go ahead and take it a little bit easier. We'll just put in one part, like, say, this water tank. Boom. And we'll just calculate out that one part. Water tank in world space, 0, -3, -3. That's odd. X equals 0 is correct, but Z should be 0 as well. Why is 0? I mean, if we select the water tank, that's not where the position is. The position... Oh, it is 6 meters long, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So the extents are at least correct in terms of it being the right size. 2 by 6 by 2 is correct. Not sure why it is at 0, -3, -3. Just to let you see, 0, -3, -3 is down here. And I honestly don't know why that would be, unless... Do you, stupid thing, have a collider? No. No, good, because you shouldn't. That would be dumb. Why is it offset? So, if we take a look at the extents were correct. When I transformed direction, the extents, they were correct. They were the correct size and in the correct coordinate space. Let's go ahead and try that again. Yeah, Jim Moran, don't worry about accidentally making a bad suggestion because, you know, I might find something out in the next 10 seconds. It's better to try to figure out what you would like to do. And if I happen to do the same thing or find a different solution, that's fine. So for now, let's go ahead and put this here and then put this here, and we'll see what it has to say for itself. Clear. Component fuel tank in world space. Center -133, extents -2 to 6.4. That shouldn't be the case. The extents in world space should be 622, not -6. What? Okay, well, I think I know the problem with the extents. You know, maybe this is already in world space, and what I'm doing is I'm converting it twice. Let's try it. Where is my water? All right, let's try it on for size. Yeah, okay, so it's already in world space, you fucking moron. Okay. I'm sorry, I am a little salty. So this is already in world space, and what we're going to do is c.bounds. There we are. We're just going to calculate out bounds in world space, but we're going to go ahead and set our ship to be at 0, 0 and unrotated first. We don't need to worry about that. It's automatically set to 0, 0 and unrotated right now. Later on, we might have to do that. To do ship could conceivably not be at 0, 0, 0 and unrotated. Well, I spent half an hour trying to solve that bug, which is mostly done by me being just tremendously dumb. But I'm glad that we got it figured out, sussed out, as it were. So now we have a ship that's still not right, like at all. Are you going to have an error? Yeah, you barfed. All right, so we're just getting the raw bounds, and we're combining them in the raw way. But I think that there's something wrong. Maybe I'm not understanding the way that it's doing its inclusion, because this is not even vaguely correct. Like, it's not even in the same ballpark. It's super weird. I mean, if I were to try and fit the ship within it, it wouldn't even come close to working. It's too large on some axes and too small on others. It's just mind-boggling. What's going on here? Is it exactly half the size it needs to be? I bet it's a bug. And not a bug. I bet it's a difference in the rendering here. Because I bet what's happening is that this is specifying the extents in every direction in a kind of cubic radius. But the problem with that is then we have an extremely tall ship. So maybe that's not it. Why is this so oh, wait, hold on. We do have an extremely tall ship. I am an idiot. Okay. All right, let's take a look. That looks right. It's not in the right spot, but it looks right. So that is our world space collider. If I don't subtract bounds.extents and instead just multiply it by 2, will that be correct? Will that actually Jim Morin says, "Good man making notes. I have when I work with people and don't make notes." I have no idea whether the notes I make are any good. Right now I'm trying to figure something out, and I tend to be pretty fast and loose with the notes until I figure out what's going on. Aha! Perfect. So that is precisely correct. That is the extents we want for our ship. It is 100% dead on. Perfect. All right. So there are a couple of small details that we're going to need to do now that we have this extent. One, we're going to need to draw this gizmo as something other than a flat gray cube, because the flat gray cube is really hard to look at. So draw a wire cube. Yeah, that's fine. And that's fine. We can do it like that. The other thing we want to do is use those bounds to calculate this shit out again. Here we go. So we find all the mesh filters as before, and we go through all of the colors, all of the verts, and create colors for each. What we're going to do is get local to world, and we're not going to bother to bring it back into ship space. So there we are. And our percent is going to be pos.y minus center.y minus bounds.extents.y, maybe? We got bounds.min, right? Bounds.min.y, yeah. Bounds.max.y minus bounds.min.y. But that's just extents.y. The funny thing is, it was the straightforwardest method. The yay I did it is really, really bitter. When all I had to do is literally just do one line of code instead of 80 lines of code. The only problem was with how I was displaying it. So that's all well and good, I suppose. Either way, this should end up creating some vertex colors. So let's give it a shot. There's our Yorker. Let's go ahead and load up the colors. Aha! Look! It's so beautiful! It's so beautiful! It's also only the second half. I think that the extents are half rather than 100%. I think they're radius rather than what we might hope for. So that's fine. We can fix that pretty easily. But that is pretty perfect. That's basically what I'm looking to do. With the problem that it's the wrong axis. So I need it to be Z, not Y. That's fine. Not a big deal. This is the kind of problem that I don't mind at all. The fact that I have to multiply something by 2, and I know exactly what it is that I have to multiply by 2, pretty good. I like that. So I'm not too concerned. What we're going to do, however, is keep trying until it's correct. Aha! So this is perfect, except for it's backwards. So let's go ahead and invert that. Now we're also going to want to set this up with a set of colors that we can specify. So this is going to be protected. Public color, nose color equals color.white. Public color, body color equals color.gray. And public color, rear color equals new color, new cloth, new color, and then we're going to want to specify, these should be color 32s, sorry, give me a moment, 32, 32, 32, new color, 32, what do we got right now, like 60, 20, 20, something like that, we got 90, 20, 20, it's fine. And then what we're going to do is substitute in these new values for front and mid and back. And in this way, you can color your ship without needing to have different materials per ship, which is kind of an advantage. You do have to have different textures, different meshes per ship, though, which isn't great. Does not go. That's right, sorry. Hey, Twitter. Nope, nobody has anything to say. I am the most popular guy on Twitter. All right, so hopefully this is going to be correct. Let's go ahead and load up our ship, the Bjarker. And let's pop in a set of vertex colors for it. There we go. And you can see that back here we have this darker red, and as we go forward, it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter. So we got a couple of small issues, and it's mostly with how I've actually laid this ship out. Let's go ahead and move this forward, and then move this forward. And I don't really care where these get put at the moment. We'll have to redo the ship later. But now with this new setup, let's try it again. Okay. So that's how it looks when you actually have something that goes all the way to the back like this. Now, one of the things we can do here is we have a variety of objects that have other coloration systems. For example, this warning orange is a very popular one. If we take the warning orange and we change it over to using the same shader, then we get the same sort of offset, see? And I kind of like how that looks. That is very, very close to what I want. There are some small differences here and there. One is that the gloss is really, really high here. 0.8 is like really shiny and glossy. I think 0 is more like what I would like. And we're going to want to do the same thing with the hull, 0. The heavy hull is another object. I don't think there is any on this particular object now. So we're going to go over here, select something with heavy hull, and set it up as a 0 gloss to give us that flat shading. All right, so this is starting to look better. What we can do is with the colors, we've got the normal hull set up to be white, and we want the heavy hull to be set up to be a darker shade like this. But what I would like to see is I would like to see the vertex colors be a lot more powerful. Because we're not getting... Oh, maybe I can just change the lighting. Let's take a look at the light. There you are. If we bring up the intensity to, say, 2, not 3, 2, and we look at how this looks, 1.5 is basically correct. And then we've got this one coming from the other side, I believe. See, our options here for the shader, we can increase the brightness rather than decrease it. So for our shader right now, we've got this situation where we are multiplying. We don't have to multiply. We can do a lot more than that if we would like to. And we can also artificially amp up the color. See how we've got this multiply here? We can put in another system to handle this. Including just a flat out value increase. So let's try that first and see whether or not it looks good. Let's go ahead and make that an adjustable value. Yeah, that's temporary. Well, all of this stuff is technically temporary. So I think that that's not going to work until I reboot. Let's go ahead and give it a bump. All right, so now what we've done is we've brightened up the entire ship, at least in theory, by changing how the default mesh textures render. So you've got this brightness here, and we can just increase it and decrease it to change the overall brightness of the entire system. So what we're going to want to do is have our whole heavy be a brightness of, say, 1, and our whole light be a brightness of, say, 2. And now, when we go to color the Bjarker, There we are. You can see what we get. This is a fairly interesting look. It's not ideal just yet, but I think it's on its way to being fairly ideal. So if I were to go over to the Bjorker and change it from gray to, say, blue like this, and then I was to recalculate all of that nonsense again. So we're starting to get a feeling for the kinds of variation we can do here. For example, let's try gold. It's over here. So you can see how this can work to give us a fairly nice set of gradients. Overall, I think this is a good method to doing it. I think it makes the ships look a lot more visually distinct. I think what I'm going to try and do is bring in this shade. Well, the warning orange is intended to be like something where if you see it, you're like, oh, gotta stay back. That's gonna be something explosive. Yeah, that's actually kind of close to what I want out of this. Now the main problem is the fact that it's not a ship. It's just kind of a collection of parts. If I were to make it into a ship, I bet it would start to look okay, though. For example, let's say if I put this up here. Here, I'll put these here. Like that. And then I'll just go ahead and recalculate. If I spend a little bit of time to make actual ships and do this, I think that they will look good. Jim Morin says, a bit? I'm not sure. Sorry, it's been 10 seconds. I don't remember what I said. But what we have to do is change some of these so they use the same shader. Like everyone's favorite, the cloth. Switch this over to the new shader. Boom. Now there are a couple that we're not going to do that with. In specific, we're not going to do that with any of the glowing elements. So the glowing elements will remain just brightly glowing, and that's fine. Yeah. Let's go ahead and make ourselves a ship. We'll do a good job with it this time. So we'll start off with a bridge. Where's our bridge? Our bridge. Cockpit. That's why I couldn't find it. Oh, I loaded it up, but it didn't actually delete the other ship. That's a bug. I'll have to try and figure out what that is. Cockpit. Just stick it here. We'll go ahead and put on some rooms here, like this. Now, the nuclear reactor is a fun one, but I don't actually need it unless I'm going to be using ion drives. I can just stick the airlock on the back of the ship, because the airlock needs to be refactored. It's not very good right now. I have to refactor it. But at least if it's there, it's not going to look bad overall. Well, let's go ahead and create a rocket-propelled version here, because that's going to be a little bit easier for us to deal with. Create a large mount. And the large mount can go... Well, if I put it here, that's not going to look quite right. Let's move this and put in a hall. Let's shoot. Doop, 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 doop. Boom. And boom. This can be put here, like that. Then we can put in the rocket fuel tanks like this. Yeah, I think that looks okay. And then we can put in some of the elements we're going to need, like the maneuvering jets we'll put in the back here. Like that. We can grab them again and bring them down. Corvette. And now the question is, where do we want the rocket thrusters to be? Because classically they just go on the back of these tanks, and I think that's probably okay. Let's go ahead and... oh, yeah, I'm too low. Yeah, that's right. Just stick them on the back there. That's probably okay. And now let's go ahead and start to add in some of the other elements we're going to need, like cargo space. That should be okay. Too much Z fighting, it's not going to work. We could put them above and below. That doesn't look too bad. Now, if we go over here and we take a look at our engineering layout, you can see that it says that we need water, energy. We need water and energy, and that's all we need. So that's what we're going to go for next, water and energy. So we got a water tank, but it's huge, as you can see. We don't need a big water tank. We can use a small one. So let's go ahead and grab a small water tank from down here. Here it is. So this small water tank won't give us all of the supply of water that we need. If I put in 2 of these guys, you can see here, it says OK plus 4 aux. Really? I probably have something wrong then, because what it's supposed to say is 2 aux, because these are smaller tanks from a smaller class of ship. So clearly they aren't going to supply enough water for the entire ship just like that. That's fine. We'll go ahead and put on as many as we think we would need if it was working right, because it'll recalculate correctly later. Yeah, I guess I'll just stick them here. That's fine. So we've got a couple more mount points. We don't have any power supply, so let's go ahead and pull in some power supply, which is a fuel cells. Oh, there. Oh, missed. That's pretty decent, and then what we can do is put on an antenna just because that's obviously how we want it to look. Just bang, right there. So the problem is we're short on armor plating. We don't have any kind of armor plating in this setup. We can import a couple kinds of armor plate from a different set of engines, a different kind of ship, but it's going to look really out of place. What I really need to do is change out how armor plate looks and make sure that there is armor plating for each category of ship. But for now, we'll do it like this. Now we have an issue, and these guys are not using the correct shader yet. That's not a big deal. Switch them over here. Perfect. Yeah, we might have to adjust some of these values here. All right, so let's just go ahead and tell the ship to recalculate the colors and take a look at how that looks. Well, it could use some work, but overall, it doesn't look too bad. What do you think, one guy that's watching? I'm going to go post to Twitter here. All right, so I have implemented a ship gradient system, IndieDev, paste. And then let's get a different angle here, like this. Paste. But that ship is pretty ugly. Let's go ahead and create ourselves a classic. A classic ship being, of course, the early era Corvettes. These early era Corvettes have an unusual design that is just awesome. So let's go ahead and put it together. We'll want to do... Did I just put in the 3-meter nose because I'm an idiot? I did. Obviously, I want the 4-meter nose, as everyone is aware. So let's put in our cockpit. 4-meter cockpit goes... Oop. Oh, that's right. I forgot. So let's... Okay, come on. Here. And you can see that this is covering up the cockpit, but if I rotate, it rotates by 30. So what we actually need to do is go into the options menu, which is escape. Help. Yeah, here it is. Rotation snap 45. Thank you. And that way we get a nice 45-degree snap instead. Perfect. So let's go ahead and put in a 4-meter room system. Just like drop it right in. And we'll put in a 4-meter power core. That's upside down. Oh, there we are. And then we'll put in a 4-meter command center. Oh, that's old. Let's not use the command center. 4-meter cargo core. Ooh, ah. And then we will put on 4-meter cladding just to see whether or not it fits properly. I'm at 45 degrees. I have to fix that bug. Oh, it might... Here we are. And then we'll put down the 4 to 3 meter cladding here. Just... Oh, no, that is a 3 to 4 meter cladding. There we are. I'll put in our tapered fuel tanks. Right there. And that might be just enough room for a couple more elements here. How about 4-meter rooms again? More rooms. Make it nice and roomy. And how about another set of 4-meter rooms? No, let's put in more cargo. Now, I think that that's technically overlapping. Yeah, it was. So that means that all of this stuff has to be moved back 1 notch. There we are. Let's do with a 3-meter cap here. And put in the engine. Oh, we want the airlock first. There we are. And we can drop in some decorations like these fins, which go well here. And here. And some maneuvering thrusters, because otherwise we aren't getting nowhere fast. Just attach them to the fuel tanks. So you can see that the remaining problem is that we do not have any sort of interior properly set up. You can see that we have an unmanned ship here, even though we have rooms attached. That's because I'm not done integrating the crew into our new ship system. That's what I was going to do today until I got distracted by the idea of making things look less shit. So this is going to be the Classic. And we're going to go ahead and give it a description. The first ship to land on the moon! Exclamation point. Save ship. I didn't save properly. Save ship correctly. There we are. So now we've got this ship, right? Let's go ahead and see how it looks when we apply our vertex colors. Oh. See, isn't that a little bit more popping? Doesn't it feel a little bit more elegant than it did before? In terms of feeling like it has some sort of non-flat color situation. So let's go ahead and take a picture of that for Twitter. Let's go into our help and turn off the grid. That's fine. Boom. Excellent work. If I do say so myself, which I do. So people are actually talking here. I'm sorry, I haven't looked at chat in a while because I got focused. Quartz Banger says, a wing. Tikure says, looks cool. Evil Luigi says, looking okay, not amazing, not bad either. Quartz Banger says, just the tip. And Jim Moran says, hey, hey. So Evil Luigi, presumably when you say looking okay, not bad, not good, you're talking about the overall impression. And I need to remind you that this is a really old set of meshes that I am going to have to replace. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain that this is not this will never, you cannot make this look excellent. Right now I'm talking about whether or not the method of shading the ship looks any better than the flat color method. And to be honest, I think it does. If you don't think so, I'm perfectly interested in hearing. I'm very interested in hearing what you would do instead. So that is warning orange and hole 1. Okay. Yeah, good. All right, so that was 2 hours of me fussing with shaders, only to use a non-shader solution. Hooray! So I haven't finished integrating this into the ship yet, and let's do that before we call it a day. So color verts is a function that can be called from anywhere at any time. And so what we're going to want to do is after we load the ship, we're going to want to call it. And any time that the ship is marked dirty, we're going to want to call it. So here we are, cleaning and refreshing ship. So this, I'll put it here, vertex color. What did I call it? Color verts. Hey, pink hair. Evil Luigi says, I know it's really early. Shading just feels too perfect, in lack of a better word right now. I am interested in getting more opinions on how to make the shaders look good, or how to make the ships look good, because this stuff is very early on, and I want to get the right kind of mood. Jim Mora says, was a pink. I'm not sure. Oh, pink hair. That's right. So that didn't fire. It didn't get marked as dirty when we loaded the ship. So what we need to do is figure out where that actually happens. What we really need to do is set it to dirty when we load the ship. It doesn't make any sense that it wouldn't get set to dirty when it's loaded. I mean, that's kind of a fundamental situation. So let's take a look at how we load up the ship. We do that via the blueprints system. So let's go ahead and pull this up, and then we'll go ahead and investigate the buttons. Here it is. So this is the build menu, and the build menu does the work here. So we're going to take a look down here, and when we set target valid build, here it is. So when we build the ship, we get the ship prefab. And then we set the description to the blueprint description. We register the ship. We deserialized object. Target ship deserialized object. Obviously, that is where we need to put in. But it's default, isn't it? Yeah. So that was the issue. We're going to want to have our serialization. Here it is. So override after deserialization, post deserialization. There it is. And we're going to want to mark that as the time when we redo the colors. Now the problem is we got a couple of these obsolete serializers, which we're just going to go ahead and get rid of now. They are obsolete enough that they are actively in our way. So just see whether that pops up any errors based on other obsolete functions. Doesn't look like it. All right, so Jim Moran, I think Pink Hair says, I think good textures go a long way. Jim Moran says, indeed, I work with shaders a lot, but a good shader only does so much. Textures do all the magic. Substance is a godsend. Yeah, I would agree, except right now what I'm doing is I'm doing a very lazy texture method where everything uses the same texture, and I needed to get myself some variation in the ship without variation in the texture. And this is kind of what I was hoping for. It doesn't look quite as good as I want yet, but the basic idea is definitely there. What do you think, Pink Hair? I think this is the first time you're seeing this actually working, and it's worth looking at here. One of the things that this ship doesn't do right now is when it deserializes, the new deserializer doesn't actually delete any of the existing objects. So we have two ships now, as you can see, and obviously that's dumb. So we're going to want to put in the deserializer, clearing out the old ship. And to do that, we're going to want to, oh, here it is, deserialize parts. The problem is that deserializing the parts here is part of the old deserialization, and if we look for references, we're not going to find any. So what this needs to be is the pre-deserialization. So override pre-deserialization and delete this. There we are. We don't even need this part though. And this will be meta clean. This will be color vert. So yeah, that's in meta clean. There we are. Boom. Jim Moran says, reason for only using one texture? Speed. Not inside of the game engine, but inside of my ability to make 10,000 ship parts as quickly as possible. Because they all use the same textures, I can put together the ships and all of their components really, really fast. It only takes maybe 20 to 30 minutes for any given part. And that is a huge advantage when you are a team of one and you only have hobbyist hours to spend on it. There is no reason you can't use more textures. It's just that it's prohibitively expensive for me to use more textures. Yeah. All right, so we have a ship that doesn't look as bad as it did this morning. It doesn't look quite as flat as it did this morning. And it can be customized with any color we want. Now, right now, we don't have the capability to customize that color because there's nothing here that does that. But we can set it up. So let's go ahead and, well, the color picker. Is there a color picker UI element? I don't believe there is. Let's take a quick look. No, there's no color picker UI element. So it would be annoying to build. I don't really feel like building something annoying right now. So Pink Hair says you could work with the text you have to enhance the shading, add brush strokes or like in the roughness channel. I think that would go a long way. Right now I don't even have a roughness channel. It's just a flat situation. If we take a look at the these are the materials that everything shares. And you can see it's got a metallic and it's got a gloss, but it hasn't got a roughness. The good news is I can add in a roughness channel right here. And I can either replace the metallic or the gloss or whatever we would like. Another thing I can play around with is the idea of using light wrapping or adjusting ambient light. Let's go ahead and use some light wrapping here just to see how it looks. Or I could use refraction, I guess. So pink hair, the textures I'm using are extremely temporary. I can send them to you, but they're so temporary, they're really not worth reusing. This is them. This is all of the textures that I have. And then I take this texture and I grayscale it for a bump map. And that's my textures. I do have a couple of other textures, but they're like a grid. So this is the only texture I've got that's complex. I don't actually know how to send that to you because I can't just drop a file into chat. But it's very, very primitive, and I would not mind having a texture that just replaces it. So that would be great, pink hair. Keep in mind that the existing objects are temporary. I don't mind adjusting their UV maps. I don't mind any of that stuff. I don't know if I have your email. I can certainly email it to you if you want to give that to me. You don't have to put it in chat. You can DM me on Twitter or here on Twitch with your email, and I'll be happy to send it over to you. Light wrap, that's right. I was going to check out how it looked with some light wrapping. Oh, wow, it gets really, really bright. Let's take a look here with our brightness turned down. And light wrapping turned up. Okay. So I think that light wrapping is the wrong solution for us here. Of course, nobody is surprised by that. One of the other things I wanted to play with, and I just forgot about it until now, I wanted to try putting on an ambient occlusion post effect onto our camera. So let's go ahead and do that here. Here's our ship camera. The problem is I'm not at all sure that the ambient occlusion post effect actually works when it's in a camera like this. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. AOG Comic, huh? Alright, I'll send you that letter now. To AOG Comic, here's a texture. Let's load up this ship before I forget, though. So with SSAO on, we get a little bit, I don't even know if it's working. No, it's not working. Oh, it is. Okay, hold on. I think that does add, not enough to make me happy, but enough to make it worth using. Can I increase the radius? Oh, that's a little bit better. So if we turn this off, we can see the difference. Yeah, that definitely does help. It's not great, but it's way better than the alternative of not having it. Yeah, that's fine. So was that the value we wanted? I think that was it. Anyway, let's go ahead and email you that texture. I'll do it after the channel. It's almost over, so you'll have it in half an hour or less. But for now, I just wanted to go ahead and basically wrap up. I wanted to thank everybody a lot. I had so much help today, even though it wasn't a lot of people in chat. The people who were in chat were extremely helpful. So it was really a great day for me. Jim Moran says, personally, I'm a perfectionist. When I make stuff, it tends to go for AAA, not reaching it most of the time. Granted, the one texture doesn't sit well with me. Okay, so that's the thing. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm the exact opposite of a perfectionist. I am happy to put together my textures and my system as fast as possible, as long as the underlying structure allows for me to fix that later. And it does. There's no reason that I have to use one texture. I just happen to currently use one texture. So it would be trivial for me to replace these materials with custom textures. Except for the fact that I'd have to actually make all of those materials and all those textures. Yeah, I think the AO adds. Let's take a quick look here at the AO again. Because I'm not actually sure that these are the values I want. 2 is correct. Do I want the downsampling different? No, 1 is fine. Or 2 is what it was, yeah. This needs to be maxed out. Okay, so that's the only change we have left to make. Boom. Pinker says, maybe I'll make a substance so he can just pick a new seed. Yeah, that would be awesome, although I'm not 100% sure. This is going into territory where I have very little knowledge, and I'm happy to learn more, and I'm also happy to have support. So I am going to stop now because, unfortunately, I talked a lot last night. I got myself lost in the woods. I got Night in the Woods, and I got lost in the game, and I was recording audio the whole time. So now my voice sounds like scratch paper. But I will see you on Sunday. And for those of you who want me to email, I'll be doing that shortly, and I'll pay attention to chat for the 10 minutes or so. Take care. I don't require anyone to help me. I am happy if people enjoy hanging out. But when people do help me, it's obviously pretty neat. Yeah. So my official review of Night in the Woods, Pink Hair, is that it is almost unbelievably good. It's hard to imagine that it could belong in the games industry or in 2017. But it is very much a Life is Strange-like. So if you're not a fan of Life is Strange-likes, then you probably won't like it. Anyway, that's it for today, and I will see you folks on Sunday.